assume okay. Hello, Angelo. Hello, Angelo. Nice to meet you, and welcome to the new podcast of the Human Driving AI Summit that will happen in Pompeii at the end of September. Angelo Dalli is a very famous, let me say, person in this field, in so many fields, and I will let you, Angelo, to introduce yourself, and then we will proceed with my question for you for this podcast.
Thank you, Antonino. Yes, I'm Angelo Dalli. I've been working on artificial intelligence for more longer than most people have been even knowing the term. So I've created my first neural network in the late 90s, and then started immediately being captivated by the possibilities of AI, and did my PhD early on, more than 20 years ago, and have been working in AI ever since for more than 20 years. So I've done a lot of work on what are now called language models. Back then they weren't known as language models, on search engine optimization, also on things when it comes to DNA sequencing, on vehicle traffic management. I did a lot of stuff when the camera, for example, recognizes your license plate, and also on document extraction, on analyzing documents, on being able to recommend what is next, and also being able to do a lot of algorithms that recommend what to do next. For example, the stuff that you get on things like Netflix, and supermarkets, online e-commerce, and this kind of stuff. So I've worked a lot on these things, and also recently have been focusing on high impact decision making using AI. How do you make AI that can collaborate effectively, that you can trust to make a decision for you when you either are going to lose a lot of money or you're going to harm someone?
Thank you, Angelo. Okay, that's okay. Just I have to ask to you, Angelo, if you can center the camera, because I see you in the split screen. Yeah, maybe so much.
Shall we do it again?
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
You can do it
I
again if
can.
you want.
No. That's okay. I can proceed with the question, because we can have the chance to cut your presentation. That was perfect. That was
Better like
perfect.
this?
That's okay. That's okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Angelo. And for my first question, based on your work with Malta's AI task force, how can regulation, according to you, can balance societal protection with technological innovation?
Yes, this is a very important part of what I have been doing in the past, working with different task forces in Malta. Also, when there was the EU AI Act, I was one of the people who was giving my opinion to the Commission, and I think this is a very important thing to do, to be able to see, okay, how is society going to change? How do we mitigate those adverse issues that we're going to face when AI starts being increasingly used? And maybe some people may lose jobs, or the education needs to be changed, and this kind of issues, which I think are very important issues around AI. I think we have an example from the past, based on the Industrial Revolution, when we had the introduction of machinery, when we had the introduction of new processes. People started going away from rural areas to urban areas as a result, and there was a lot of societal change. And I think this is very important to cater in advance. How are we going to handle a society in which people work less? How are we going to handle a society where AI has largely taken over a lot of work that we do now manually? And I think regulation is there to protect people from harm. So I am in favor of very light touch regulation, not being, overly prescriptive, over-regulatory. For example, in the EU AI Act, you have the obligation that if you have created content using AI, or there is deepfake, you have to mention that, you have to indicate to people that there is deepfake, or that there is an AI content being produced. I think this is actually good to protect people, to make sure that they know that they're not interacting with a human. If you're interacting with a chatbot rather than a person, you need to know that you're actually interacting with an AI system. So I think this is an example of light touch in fact, approach to regulation. Some of the more heavy stuff, for example, the EU has identified a few applications which it deems to be of particular scrutiny, for example, when using it for face recognition on the street. That governments cannot just use it automatically without having permission. There is a bit of checks and balances. If you have large companies that, for example, are controlling foundational models, how do you actually make sure that there is a balance between, what those companies can do, but as we've seen, for example, with the release of advanced models that all of a sudden can go and hack into someone's systems, you do need to have some form of possibly certification that this advanced model is actually safe to release to people. I don't think this applies to basic, simple models. I don't think that it needs to be applied on absolutely everything. But if you have a system that can automatically hack another system, I think this is when you do need to have the safety concerns. So another way that I have been actually contributing is via the Council of Europe on advising how would the education system be changed in order to create a society that is ready for AI, that is ready for an AI-driven future. And I think this is very important. How do you teach people the skills, the logic skills, to be able to reason things through, to be able to rely on themselves and use AI as a tool rather than rely totally on it. I have one phrase that I like a lot, which is basically the difference between delegation and abdication. When you delegate work to AI, you're doing it the right way, you're using it as a tool that helps you. When you're abdicating, you're literally just giving it free rein to do whatever it wants, and I think that is when things will go wrong. So regulation, I think, needs to make sure that we steer people in the right way and just prevent harm from happening, and then allow innovation to happen as much as possible.
Clear. And through your work with the UMA, Universal Machine Artisan, how is human AI collaboration redefining the traditional concept of, I don't know, artistic creativity in that way?
Yes, in fact, so apart from my work on high impact AI, high impact decision making, one of the things that I've been doing for a long time, since 2003, has been to explore how AI can be used in artistic creation and artistic creativity. And nowadays it's something that everyone is using. Everyone is using AI to create images, to create content. But way back in 2003, this was something magical. It was something that very few people were actually doing. We used to think, even just up to a few years ago, that artistic creativity is probably going to be the last thing that AI will be able to affect. I always used to tell artists, don't need to worry, like AI is never going to be able to do this. On this I was a little bit wrong, because now I think everyone is using AI for all the pre-production, post-production, and even entire content. With this, I have created a system that I've been refining over many years called the Universal Machine Artist, and we have tested a lot of different collaborations with different artists. How do you actually have a human work alongside with AI that's not just prompting it to do stuff, even though prompt writing in a very creative way is a very difficult skill to achieve. There are in fact platforms. For example, my good friend has a platform called Syntopia that is actually creating a platform that lets you create these new environments very easily without really knowing how to do prompts. But I've also explored means of being able to work with artists using traditional media. So I've done, for example, this project with Serena Sherry on Tomorrow's Blossoms, in which she was drawing different, around 5,000 images that were hand sprayed, and then another 5,000 images related to emotions. And then we trained a custom part of UMA to know how to imitate that artistic style. So in a way, it is basically something that is not threatening to artists, that is also acceptable within a copyright and artistic rights context. It's not stealing anything from artists. It is still helping them with their creativity, and there are a lot of things that can be done. I had also explored a little bit with the late Mark Malia on how to actually artists can collaborate physically with AI. For example, if you use a paintbrush, if you use like spray, how do you actually work alongside with artists? And we've seen a lot of examples in this. For example, in Italy, I was very surprised that even in places like Carrara, where there is like sculpture, like the famous marble quarries, a lot of the sculpture is now being aided and assisted by robotic means. So this is something that I think would have changed. And who knows, maybe, if Michelangelo was living in this time, he would be probably using it too. He was using apprentices for a lot of the work, before actually finishing himself. And I think that possibly there's absolutely nothing wrong in using the new technology. And, this is why in English there's the phrase state of the art, because art traditionally used to be the most cutting edge use of scientific tools. So this is another way why exploring creativity in art always gives results that then can be used to, improve technology and science.
Thank you. And what core elements do you look for as an angel investor, no? In high tech startups, trying to scale globally because it's so important, no? To
Yes.
act locally and scale globally.
Yes. I have been doing a lot of work in the past as an entrepreneur myself, but also I have invested in various companies as an angel investor, both directly and also through funds and also through crowdsourcing sites. So literally, like if you were to take direct and indirect investments, I think there have been more than 400 of them in different industries. Obviously, some have been successful, some have not, but this is the nature of the game in angel investment, that you always get those 40 to 60% of startups that do not make it. But then you get that like small percentage that make it really, really well. So those basically compensate for the failures. There are a few elements that I have learned to look for. One is the team composition. I think the founding team is the most important. You need to look at the people, their motivation, their commitment, their track record, also their natural abilities, their talents on how to execute. Do they have a team that can actually execute? Do they have skills that can gel together, that can complement each other or not? I think this is very important. The level of grit, how are these people going to continue when faced with difficulty? And as an entrepreneur and a startup, you will always go through a few of those scary moments. So if it's someone who's going to quit very easily, again, that would be a red flag. But if they have a track record of being able to go through and manage to pull through, I think this is also something that is very important to have. Also, the business idea itself, I think the obviously you have to have a product that is compelling. As Y Combinator's motto goes, you have to make something that people want. And I think this is very important, and also that people pay you for. So I think this is super important. I used to do the scale-up workshops for EBAN, for the European Business Angel Network. And one of the things that I would teach is how to identify a market that allows you to scale up, how to remove the manual process and bottlenecks that actually prevent you from scaling up, from automating, because the last thing you want to do is to be able to just sell people's time. That is something that, unfortunately, for example, like the consultancy model does a lot, but it is not so easily scalable, because the only way to do that is to employ more people. I think AI is going to have a huge impact on this. I'm already seeing, for example, like 1% startups. So I think we're in for a different type of startup where you have less and less human involvement and teams, and which is more based on AI agents and with a person or two, controlling and being able to specify things. So it's an exciting time, and even myself, I have a software engineering background, and I would not go back into the way that I would have done things in the past before. So if I had to create a new startup now, I would probably use AI to build at least 80-90% of it. And I think this is going to change the way that startups are invested in. So I think the skill, the ability of someone to specify, to be clear in what they want, to be able to actually steer AI to do and to work with it in a good way, I think is also going to be an important factor to allow high-tech startups to scale globally. And I think that what AI does is to also make a level playing field which gives companies that are not, only based in US or China and maybe UK to compete, but also in other countries to be able to compete effectively.
Okay, Angelo, thank you. And last but not least, on September 18 and 19, you will be in Pompeii for the Human-Driven AI Summit. What will you presenting on stage, and why people have to be there to hear from you something?
I will be presenting a vision of how AI can be used in high impact systems, on how you can actually collaborate with AI to make decisions that are impactful. If you have a decision that is very important to make, that is going to affect your life, that is going to affect your business, how do you trust AI into helping you make it? How do you actually make it more efficiently? Because AI, as we know, can consider many different options and alternatives faster than we can, but how do you then prevent it from making the decision for you? So I will be talking about that, and I think it's an important topic because as time goes by, we are abdicating more and more towards towards AI, and we need to be able to use it as an effective tool. And I'm excited to be speaking about it in the Pompeii event.
Okay, thank you again, Angelo. Much appreciate for your time. Thank you for your presence, and we will meet you in person in Pompeii, and here to hear from you all the interesting things that you told to us. Okay, thank you again, Angelo.
Pleasure.
Bye bye. Bye bye.